On this episode of the Turnbuckle, WBD executive calls Power Slap League an experiment and praises AEW. Steve Austin versus Brock Lesnar was pitched to happen at WrestleMania 39, and the Bella Twins lash out at WWE for their lack of women's representation. Folks, rating your favorite wrestling movies and wrestling news because it's time. Do you like the mic cover? For the Turnbuckle. Kathleen Finch, the chairman and chief content officer for Warner Brothers Discovery U.S. Networks Group, recently spoke to Deadline regarding AEW and Dana White's Power Slap League. The Power Slap League debuted last week on TBS, bringing in fewer than 300,000 viewers and scoring a .10 in the 18 to 49 demographic. Finch was asked if there was concern regarding the program following a video being made public that showed White slapping his wife. Finch responded, "This is an experiment. The goal is we are making shows for our fans. That's who we work for. Fans of wrestling have a lot of overlap with the fans of this, and it's huge on social media, so the idea really is, if we can take something that's huge on social, bring it to a linear audience, giving the fans what they want." Since the Warner Brothers Discovery merger, many scripted shows on the company's networks have been canceled, even some that had already completed filming new seasons. These include shows such as Snowpiercer, The Big D, and Chad. Finch praised many of the unscripted programs WBD offers, such as a MILF Manor, a prank show similar to Punk'd that will debut soon, as well as AEW and the Power Slap League. Finch continued to say she was not familiar with pro wrestling before accepting her current position at Warner Brothers Discovery. She said that one surprising thing she has learned is that wrestling is something families watch together. She said, "This may surprise you to know that I did not know much about wrestling before I took this job. I know, I seem like a wrestling fan, but I'm not. But I did have to learn a lot about the audience. A lot of families that watch wrestling. I was very surprised to learn this. I have huge respect for this audience. AEW Wrestling airs on two of our networks, TNT and TBS. On both nights, it kills. Finding something that speaks to that audience, that would be gold." So it's very clear that Warner Brothers is very high on AEW right now, and I love hearing stuff about this, which is kind of why a couple days ago I didn't really think anything about that SmackDown report about how Fox was losing a bunch of money to SmackDown. I was like, oh, it's fine, you look at the numbers and everything's fine, but that actually ended up being like a thing worth talking about. But anyway, yeah, man, it's good to know that Warner Brothers is sort of you can tell the way that they're looking at, did you hear it? They were like, oh yeah, Power Slap, and they were like, yeah, it's an experiment, we're trying to figure out what works and everything like that. And then when you talk about AEW, she was like, man, I did not know that a lot of people liked it and families watch it, and it's bringing in a lot of decent numbers and stuff. So you can tell that she was obviously talking high about AEW, and I don't really know how she feels about the Power Slap. What a weird thing to call it. I always love hearing about this. I love reading about stuff like this, is good or bad, you know what I mean? Because it just sort of gives you an inside look into how the companies are feeling about the show as a whole and everything, and sort of tells you where everything is going to go in the next couple months. So with AEW, it sounds like it's going well, and I can't wait to see what else Warner Brothers has planned with them. Next, we're going to talk about Steve Austin and how Brock Lesnar was pitched for him at WrestleMania 39. Steve Austin had been pitched a match against Brock Lesnar for this year's WrestleMania. On Tuesday morning, Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer said the match pitched to Austin was a match against Lesnar. Platform reported on Monday afternoon that a match with Roman Reigns had been pitched to Austin for this year's WrestleMania in Los Angeles. The match that was pitched was not Roman Reigns, Meltzer said. It was Brock Lesnar. It's not on. Something can happen now. It's been talked about probably for months. Meltzer said that earlier when he had asked about a rumor match between Lesnar and Gunther, it was rejected, saying that wasn't the idea, but the idea was a secret. With Austin was that secret. Lesnar made his return to WWE on Monday, appearing during the main event between Austin Theory and Bobby Lashley for the United States title. Lesnar cost Lashley the match, reigniting their feud from last fall. Meltzer noted that it's likely both will be in the Royal Rumble match this weekend and will feud, though it isn't known if that feud will lead to a match at WrestleMania. Kind of weird that Lesnar just kind of randomly showed back up. Is that just me? It kind of feels like there was no rhyme or reason to it. It was just now listen, it makes a lot of sense that Lesnar showed up for a Bobby Lashley match, and they also made a point to be like, hey, he cost him the United States title the last time he was here, and then he did it again. So obviously this is more than likely gonna be into a match at the Royal Rumble and everything. And if this isn't a match at the Royal Rumble, it's obviously gonna play into the Royal Rumble itself. And I love when Royal Rumbles do that. I love it. I love when there's storytelling in the Royal Rumble. It makes it more interesting. It makes the eliminations, the debuts, the shock entrances, it makes everything so much more interesting when there's actual storytelling and there's actual things going on, instead of a bunch of people coming in. You got theme songs that you don't even recognize. One guy shows up like, hey, I remember that guy, and then he gets smacked upside the head and thrown out, and that's literally it. I was thinking yesterday, oh, Lesnar can just be smacking Lashley up, right? Up, down, left, right? And Lashley can be like, I can't get past this guy. And MVP just slides in off camera and is like, oh, you got a Lesnar problem. I know what to help with that. And Lashley's like, I'll get away from me. And that culminates, and then eventually Lashley's like, all right, fine. And then it's MVP, and then, Hurt Business, smack up Brock Lesnar, and there you go. I don't know when that's going to happen. Hopefully it happens sometime soon. Again, if it happens at WrestleMania, that'll be fantastic. And to me, honestly, that's kind of like the end goal. That's really what I want, is like this big blow-off match of like a big pay-per-view, and then we just don't hear from Lesnar again. Because, I mean, if all he's going to do is just be here, have a really decent match, to be honest with you, but then just disappear for like 6 months, like, all right, you might as well just do that with somebody else. You know, put like somebody else besides Lesnar with Lashley so that the feud can like carry on. We don't have to worry about them like disappearing. That's all. That's pretty much all I wanted to say. Finally, we're going to be talking about the Bella Twins and how they lashed out at WWE for the lack of women representation on the Raw 30th anniversary. The Bella Twins went live on Instagram after Raw's 30th anniversary and took a shot at the company for not showcasing any of the stars from the women's evolution, which they feel is because Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks in WWE, was a part of it. How they didn't showcase anything for the women's evolution, so Sasha Banks is in it, and they're like, we can't. Mercedes is too over, and we can't say her name, complained Nikki Bella. Brie then said there are other former WWE superstars that WWE doesn't want to show on television. There's a couple of other girls, and Soraya, there's a bunch of us they don't want to show. That's fine. The duo was originally advertised to appear on Raw 30th, with Bayley even teasing a confrontation with the Hall of Famers, but they did not feature on Monday night. Their last appearance in WWE came at WrestleMania 37 in 2021. On the weekend, they were inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Lita was another Hall of Famer who was rumored to be on the show, but did not make an appearance. Alundra Blaze was the only female legend to feature on Raw's 30th and was part of a backstage poker tournament segment. Some fans were not happy that the steel cage match between Becky Lynch and Bayley was called off after Lynch was attacked by Io Sky and Dakota Kai before the match could begin. The reason for the highly anticipated match not happening was because a few other segments ran over time at the start of the show. I highly doubt this was WWE's plan, right? Like, obviously WWE wasn't coming on to be like, yes, no segments, yeah. Like, I highly doubt that they were going to do that. So apparently the trial, the Sami Zayn trial, which, man, you got to watch that. The Sami Zayn trial, apparently that went over time. I don't even know. I didn't watch any of the other who cares? You got my man showing up and then APA poker tournament. So who cares? No, I would rather like no Lesnars, no legends or anything, man or woman, show up. If all they're gonna do, I don't know how to feel about the back. And it's like, okay. So you got a guy, and then the guy's like, oh, something, old WWE reference. And then the guy shows up, and everyone's like, whoa. And then that's it. And that's all that happens. If Lita was just gonna, like, if it was gonna be Lita versus Rhea Ripley, just in like a one-off match, cool. I'm not saying Lita has to wrestle, but like, if it can be something more than like the legend show. Okay, I know, I get it. They're retired and they're old, and you don't want them out there because then they're gonna hurt themselves, right? Unnecessary. I understand, but it just feels so like, how do I put this? It just feels so soulless. I don't know. It's not really a good word. Honestly, man, they don't need to deal with all that. They don't need to be in the middle of like a show. Some female wrestler's there and she's like stupid, and then Lita shows up and he's like, I'll show you stupid, and that's literally it. Or like, you know, they're in the ring, they cut a segment and they go, hey, Raw, and everyone goes, cool, and then a person comes out and then they smack them up, do their finisher, done, one and done. It's like, okay, all right, but like, you know, if that's all that was going to be, then like, whatever, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, folks, it's obviously not good, right? But with what we got, it's like, they weren't missing much, were they? They weren't missing much. What do we talk about? WBD executive calls the power slap an experiment, but praises AEW. I really like that Mrs. Finch was like, sounds like a language arts teacher. She was like, yeah, it's an experiment. We're not really going to talk about all that much, but AEW I'll talk about, you know? Again, really good for AEW. That's what you want to hear, obviously, you know, AEW being in like the good races of, you know, the companies and stuff like that. It was going to be Stone Cold versus Brock Lesnar. It was pitched. I don't know if that's still happening. It doesn't sound like it is. It doesn't sound like it is. I don't actually know. They were saying how it's going to be. It was going to be like John Cena versus Theory, and then The Rock can't really make it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really know what's going to happen at WrestleMania. They obviously want Stone Cold in something. You can tell that, like, they're floating around Stone. They don't need to, but you can obviously tell that Stone Cold is ready and WWE is ready, and they obviously want to do something with him, and they're kind of just, like, throwing a bunch of different ideas around, and so far, none of them have really seemed to be sticking, so we're just gonna have to wait and see how that goes when WrestleMania rolls around. And again, the Bella Twins were upset because there wasn't that many women on the 30th anniversary, but again, man, I mean, like, if all they were gonna do was be there for, like, and now I understand that you're like, yeah, but at least they're on there, right? Which is fair, right? They're on there, they get camera time, awesome. To be fair, though, do they need it? They're legends. They're retired. We already know about them. I would rather them be in something like, I would rather them, like, you know, like Kurt Angle, be a special guest referee, be involved. You know what I mean? You don't have to. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, you know, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be nice? Be involved. I don't want to do, if I'm a legend, I don't want to do a backstage. All right, go, say the line, Bart. Not doing that, man. You don't want to wrestle. Okay, can't wrestle. Brittle bones, fine. Let me call a match. Let me announce. Let me do something, you know? Yeah, I don't just walk around cup in hand. I'm not doing that. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this episode. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this episode, and I'll definitely catch you guys in the next one.